In a recent poll that we had in the Salon team training, we asked people when they trained and what hours when the team appreciated doing the trainings, and literally by a mile, during salon hours was the number one choice. Even after it was a far second came up on weekends, but that's another story. And I want to talk about that if you're doing your training during salon hours, because you always want to think about it from two perspectives. Number one, from the owner's perspective, if you're an owner, or if you're, say, a leader within the group, think about it from this perspective of what this means for the business. But then you also have to look at from your team and what keeping your team happy. So it generally, I'm just going to give you my thoughts, my feelings on this. It's not golden. You don't have to go by exactly. You're going to have your own opinion what this is. I'm just going to give you my opinion. And sometimes, quite frankly, that's what people pay me for. But the reality is you have to think about, if you're not going to pay your team for the training, and if during salon hours, and I know from an owner's perspective, you say, well, listen, we're not making any money during that time, so that therefore we shouldn't pay. One perspective. I know other salons that they pay them hourly wages, so they just have the trainings during salon hours, and that means that everybody's being paid for it. Other people who pay commission-based salons, etc., and you would obviously have to think of it, if I'm training my salon during salon hours when I would be bringing in revenue, there's a loss of revenue that happens in that 1, 2, 3 hour slot that we have. So that always comes to bear. And the problem that I usually find with that, and I want you owners to listen real close, is usually the owners will think, well, if I do the training, then it's my revenue. It's just me that's doing it. So I can recoup some of that meaning. So I don't have to pay anybody else to do the training. So let me rephrase that. If I'm doing the training, I don't have to pay somebody else to do it, which brings us to kind of the part that I think is always a bit touchy with most salons, is do you pay for other people within your salon, your education manager, your artistic director, your training manager, whatever that title of that person would be, or just somebody that's in the salon that alternates and does some of the training with your staff? I always say, my feeling is they should be paid. So how do you pay them? Well, you might pay them in you might give them a couple points more on their commish. You might say, well, look I'll pay you X amount of dollars that in that 1 or 2 hour slot that you would be normally getting. But listen, it's people should be paid if they're doing your training. And one of the biggest things that I hear from everybody is, well, what if I train them and they just leave? That's one of the biggest complaints that I hear from people, from salon owners. I train my people and they leave. I heard this from one person that said, well, what would happen if I didn't train them and they stayed?